I'm remembering the days before I went away, way back in the hills of old Vermont. And the orchard on the hill, I think I see it still, way back in the hills of old Vermont. For tonight I long to be where the catamount run free, and the rattlesnake can lie out in the sun, near the voices of the loons when the apple blossoms bloom, way back in the hills of old Vermont. There used to be a barn near the old fishing pond, way back in the hills of old Vermont. So many fields of hay now gone with yesterday, way back in the hills of old Vermont. For tonight I long to be where the catamount run free, and the rattlesnake can lie out in the sun, near the voices of the loons when the apple blossoms bloom, way back in the hills of old Vermont. Well, everything has changed, nothing stays the same, way back in the hills of old Vermont. Like the old brown panther's roar, you won't hear that no more, way back in the hills of old Vermont. For tonight I long to be where the catamount run free, and the rattlesnake can lie out in the sun, near the voices of the loons when the apple blossoms bloom, way back in the hills of old Vermont. But when the rains came down and flooded many towns, way back in the hills of old Vermont, all the neighbors lent a hand for the loving of the land, way back in the hills of old Vermont. For tonight I long to be where the catamount run free, and the rattlesnake can lie out in the sun, near the voices of the loons when the apple blossoms bloom, way back in the hills of old Vermont. Hi, this is Rik Palieri in the hills of old Vermont with another chapter of these songs and stories for hard-hitting times. And I'm going to do something very different today, something that I haven't done before, and I think you might like it. And it's good to see Linda's here, all right, and Bobby Forrest is here. And, you know, it's really great to have you friends that join in every week. And, you know, I started doing this thing over a year ago when the radio station, The Radiator over in Burlington, asked me to do a show to kind of give people some positive things to think about. And, you know, it's not necessarily been easy all the time to think about positive things, but I try. And right now we're in that kind of like in-between period where everybody's feeling kind of good and we're doing things, but we're all worried at what that really means. But, you know, enough of us are vaccinated, so we're mostly safe, I think, here in Vermont anyway. But the cases are still going up, folks. So if you're not vaccinated, might be a good time to think about that, because we all want to be safe and we all want to keep the music going. And the only way we're going to keep the music going and flowing is if we're able to be safe. Not only the performers, but the audience. Everybody wants to be safe. So that's one of the things that I was thinking about. And before I get into the main topic here, I was figuring about playing a song here on the banjo. Oh, my old Gibson banjo over here. Hit the table. You know, maybe put a pick on for a change. You know, sometimes I don't use picks. just that old cedar strum. Now you know this one. Bascom Lamar Lunsford sang it. But I remember Daryl Adams, Ramblin' Jack Elliott, doing it. Well, I wish I was a mole in the ground. I wish I was a mole in the ground. If I was a mole in the ground, I'd root this mountain down. I wish I was a mole in the ground. And I wish I was a lizard in the spring. Well, I wish I was a lizard in the spring. If I was a lizard in the spring, you'd listen to me sing. I wish I was a lizard in the spring. I wish I was a mole in the ground. Well, I wish I was a mole in the ground. If I was a mole in the ground, I'd root this mountain down. And I wish I was a mole in the ground. And it's baby, where you been so long? Well, baby, where you been so long? Well, I've been in the pen with the rough and rowdy men. And it's baby, where you been so long? So we can sing it together. I wish I was a mole in the ground. Let me hear it. Come on, Linda. Well, I wish I was a mole in the ground. I wish I was a mole in the ground. If I was a mole in the ground, root this mountain down. And I wish I was a mole in the ground. And I wish I was a bat in the night. Well, I wish I was a bat in the night. If I was a bat in the night, I'd never leave your sight. I wish I was a bat in the night. I wish I was a mole in the ground. Well, I wish I was a mole in the ground. If I was a mole in the ground, I'd root this mountain down. And I wish I was a mole in the ground. One more time, do it. Sing it with me now. Well, I wish I was a mole in the ground. Well, I wish I was a mole in the ground. If I was a mole in the ground, I'd root this mountain down. And I wish I was a mole in the ground. I wish I was a mole in the ground. Now, that's a song that I think that a lot of us have heard and maybe sung with. I'm going to just check here. Then I'm going to shut. There's always these things here. Oh, it's good to see some people over here. Bobby, great. Yeah, playing the banjo. And, you know, I try to play with picks on. But, you know, when I'm really playing kind of more of a frailin or claw hammer, it's harder to play with picks on. just fooling around here, getting my hand back in, trying to get my hand back in shape. It's been a while since I pulled my shoulder out. But anyway, what I thought I'd do today. Now, a lot of you know that I wrote a book. I wrote a book called Banjo Man. And before that, I wrote a different book called The Road is My Mistress. And, you know, probably some people out there are thinking about, you know, I'd like to write a book, but I don't know how to go about writing a book at all. And luckily, I think that there are a lot of things out there to help you these days, not like when I started. Now, the first thing that you got to know is that I didn't like to write. No, I didn't even like to carry a pencil. When I was a young kid, I'd always be the kid without the pencil. I'd always have to borrow a pencil. Did everything that I could to avoid writing. And then when I had this fellowship and I was living in Poland, I got a letter from Folksinger, who was telling me that I had to keep a journal. He was telling me that it was important. I had to write down everything that I was experiencing because it might be handy later on. Little did I realize how important that information was. And the idea that I started writing things down. And, you know, for most of us, you know, sometimes everybody's saying, like, you got to get a publishing deal. You got to get a publishing deal. You know, you can write, but, you know, you really need some publishing deal to make it happen. Well, I think what you got to do is just write, you know, and you can start out like I brought some examples about, you know, this whole kind of crazy path that I've been on. And, you know, the first thing that you do is you kind of find some kind of local thing. Probably these days it's a blog, not a magazine. But back at the time, back in the day, here in Burlington, there was this magazine called Good Citizen. And it was just kind of a local arts magazine, kind of telling you about the different bands and stuff. So one of the first articles that I wrote in there was about news from the hobo jungle. And I was telling about all kinds of the hobo signs and about my experiences over in Britain. Well, they liked that. And so they asked me if I'd write another one. So then I wrote this one here. And this is about a story about Utah Phillips. I wrote this story about Utah Phillips. And I was like learning a little bit about, you know, how to write things. And then they asked me to write another one. So I wrote this one here. Now, by that time, I started writing for other things. And one of the things that I started writing for is the Hobo News. Now, this is the classic magazine, the Hobo News. And I was writing detailed correspondence from these hobo gatherings that I was attending. So this is the hobos brave Hurricane Floyd to make Pennsburg a big hit. And then my week with the hobos in a different, this is another one from the Hobo Times. And then another article from the Hobo. So I started writing for the Hobo Times and Good Citizen. And then I got asked to write an interview, one of the interviews that I was doing. And this was for, this is really actually a very cool interview because I'm trying to find the cover so you could see the cover. Where'd the cover go? I don't know where the cover is, Rick. Well, this is the Banjo newsletter. That's what this is. And this particular thing is an interview that I did with Eric Darling. And so this is really special because Eric didn't give many interviews. And so that Eric gave me an exclusive interview in Banjo newsletter was really cool. So, you know, I started, you know, writing for different things. And then I got a chance to write an article in Sing Out magazine. Now, when I was a kid, the coolest magazine around was Sing Out, the folk song magazine. Now, a lot of you people remember that. And I got to do my very first article in Sing Out was in this homemade jam thing, and it was about Polish bagpipes. So that was back in 1996. So that was my first article in Sing Out magazine. And then I got to do another one in this one. And this is a special article because this one is, let's see if we can find it, Rick. Another very rare interview that I did. Probably the last interview with Jimmy Driftwood. So this is called Swappin' Songs and Tales with Jimmy and Cleta Driftwood. And so this is a really special piece. So I was writing that and Sing Out, and then I got to do another one. Now this one, I got the cover story in Sing Out magazine. So this is it's one, I think they said it was one of the longest interviews that they printed. And it is about our friend, let's see where the starts here. It's called Utah Phillips, True Timing. And this is a long, long interview. And really was the first time that Utah had been in Sing Out for a while. And so, I started writing for these different things, and the word gets around. And I was really surprised that one day I got an email from somebody over in Japan. And they were talking about the idea that they wanted me to join this group called TAP, about tapping into, it was more of like a peace group. And Olivier Urbing, invited me to be in the group. And before long, I got an invitation to come to Spain. And we would be working on a book, a special book. So all of these scholars, there were kind of Fulbright scholars and all kinds of people. They were all invited, and they invited me too, which was surprising to me. But nonetheless, I went along and met with everyone, and we put together this book here. This is called Music and Conflict Transformation, Harmony and Dissonances in Geopolitics. And this book was one of the very first peace books. It was for peace studies, and everybody had different topics to write about. And my topic in here is stories from the field. And I wrote Working in the Trenches, Surviving Conflicts Through Folk Music and Tales. And what's really funny is when I was doing this thing, I had interviewed Pete Seeger and Utah Phillips, a few other folks, and I didn't realize the impact that this book had until later on. The person who wrote, at first it was just a university book out of Oxford Press, I believe. And then it got, I.B. Taurus is the publisher. And then they made a paperback version, because the hardback version, which is here, this is the original version, the hardback version, was really expensive. But it was used in peace studies classes. And what was cool about it is later on, when they put out this second version that you can still find in bookstores, this harmony, the music and conflict transformation, harmony, dissonance in geopolitics, with the introduction by Wayne Shorter. And I had the chance to meet with Wayne Shorter. Mariana and I went over to the Flynn when he was here for Jazz Fest. And we got to talk a little bit. And it was funny because everybody in his band had read the book. And this one woman who was a piano player, she said that, yes, it was required reading at Harvard. And I just thought that was hilarious because like I said, I'm not a writer. I'm just a storyteller. But so this book is still out there today. And one thing leads to another. And people kept asking me, they said, Rick, when are you going to write a book? And well, I don't know anything about writing a book. So I was over in Pennsburg at the hobo gathering there. And this old hobo, Fran, the hobo minstrel, he had put together these little kind of books for some of the traveling hobos. Like in the years ago, they used to, when they were on the trains and stuff, they would have little pamphlets that they would sell with their story in it. And he said, Rick, we should work on a book for you. And I thought that was kind of cool. And so I started sending him stories. Well, he found out pretty quickly that unlike most of the people that he was working with, instead of like a few pages, that there was an avalanche of stories coming in every day. And Fran said, well, Rick, it looks like we're writing a real book. Now, neither of us knew what we were doing. And so I started looking around and I found this, self-publishing thing from Trafford over in Canada. And so I started filling out some of their stuff, and they were sending me more and more ideas. And I kept sending back and forth the files. Now you got to understand that Fran was he had these computers, but they were like Frankenstein computers that were kind of cobbled together from other computers. And every time that I would send a file or he would send a file, the files would get corrupted. It was such a mess. But we kept persevering and persevering. And we did put out this book, The Road is My Mistress, Tales of a Roustabout Songster. And so this is an early copy of the book. And it's you can see this one is basically needs some work because this is one of the last ones that I have. And it was a nice book, but it had so many mistakes in it that I only put out very few of this original book. What happened then was a friend who was a songwriter, Amy Collins, she looked at my book and she said, Rick, this is a good book, but I think I can help you make it better. And so Amy took the book under her wing and she did an edit of it and helped me put out a new version of it. And this one went out to onto Amazon. And so this book is still available. But there was certain things in this book, as a writer, as a songwriter, anything, that there's more stories to tell. And I never felt that it was quite complete because I had published this in 2003. And so much had changed. And I kept thinking that, I really needed to write a different book. Now, I was going around and, doing book talks. And Mariana made me this version of my book. So this is the presentation version from Mariana's book binder. You can see it's all leather and gold, and but it has the original book in it. So this is the book that usually when I'm doing a book talk, I'll bring along. And so I was out there, but I kept thinking to myself, I really need to revise that book because at that point there were so many friends that had passed on. And I felt that I had introduced them in this first book, but I really needed to honor them and to really say goodbye. But I couldn't figure out how to do it. I kept stumbling around. And then another friend, there's always friends involved, Claire Ennis, who plays ukulele, she said, Rick, I'd like to help you with your book. So she got me to start writing again. At first, I thought I was going to just do an audio book. That was the idea. And then I realized, no, I can't do an audio book because I didn't tell the full story. I gotta figure out how to tell the full story. And so I decided that I needed to start writing again. And poor Claire was there once again as an avalanche of new stories came in, and she was editing them and trying to help me put them all together. And it was pretty overwhelming, because then we had to figure out, okay, well, but this is a new book. This is not the same book anymore. I mean, it has ingredients of the first book, but this is a much bigger story. And so, somewhere around here, I guess, yes, I finally was able, with my friend Tim Brooks. Tim Brooks has been a friend of mine for a long time. He's a great writer. He wrote, his first book that I really love was called A Hell of a Place to Lose a Cow. And it was about a hitchhiking adventure that he took years ago. And Tim decided that, he could help out too. And Claire was sort of like at the end of where she felt she took this book as far as she could go. And so Tim then took over, and then he started helping me shape the book a little bit more. We took out a lot of stories. There's a lot of stories that aren't in here, and there's a lot of stories that are brand new stories. This book, Banjo Man, Adventures of an American Folk Singer, is 530 pages. It's a big book. It's some friends, Mark Ross said to me, most people, they write a book you can't put down. You wrote a book you can't pick up. Other folks have said, this is the War and Peace of folk music because it's so big. It's filled with all these wonderful stories and these photos. There's tons of photos in here. I'm really, really proud of this book, Banjo Man. And today we were able to, but the hard part about this book is because it's so big and it's so heavy that it cost a fortune to send overseas, and there were a lot of people overseas who wanted to get my book. So I started thinking about, well, it would be really good to have an ebook. And Mariana says, it's so enjoyable and easy to read. And it's true. I mean, Tim really helped me make this book really easy to read and fun to read. And it's all kinds. I've read you a lot of stories on this little show that we've done. Now it is available on Kobo. Now, Kobo, Kobo, and it's right now we're just taking advanced orders. The book is going to actually come out on October the 1st. Will be the release date for the ebook on Kobo. Now, why Kobo? My friend Michael Jonathan told me about it, and when I checked it out, what was cool with Kobo, unlike Amazon, is they work together with local bookstores. It wasn't the same kind of basically taking over the world like Amazon. So it's not as big as Amazon, but Kobo is reaching out all over the world. And so my book now, it will be available just about everywhere for a very, very low price compared to what the real book costs. But if you want the real book, you can always go to my website at rikpalieri.com, and I will send them out and autograph them, and I have a few little extras that I put in there. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about, this idea about writing. So I know, when we started out this conversation, it was like, okay, if you want to write a book, the best thing to do is start writing. And start writing for blogs and start writing for everything that you can. And these days, you don't need to have that big publisher anymore. You can self-publish. And if you have a lot of people that might be interested, you'll be surprised at how well that you might be able to do. So that's what I wanted to share with you. I'm going to share one more song, I think. Because I talked too much, but I felt it was important. I hope that you enjoyed it too. Now, this song here is a kind of an interesting song, and it talks about the idea about how things don't last. Some things don't last, except for stories. The story lives on. We might be gone, but the story remains. There was a time in this great land when you could be sure that you could lead a better life than your daddy did before. But they busted up the unions, sent the good jobs all offshore. Now the USA ain't working anymore. 'Cause nothing lasts forever but your name. Don't put your trust in money. Don't base your life on fame. Your bones will turn to ashes, but your stories will remain. 'Cause nothing lasts forever but your name. I met dreamers and schemers who thought they hit the top and had all these dreams for the money that they robbed. But that money slipped through their fingers like water down a drain. And in the end, it didn't mean a thing. 'Cause nothing lasts forever but your name. Don't put your trust in money. Don't base your life on fame. Your bones will turn to ashes, but your stories will remain. 'Cause nothing lasts forever but your name. Some people spend their lives waiting to retire, put all their dreams on hold while the doctor bills get higher. When old age robs their health, their bank accounts expire, and they wonder if they worked their lives in vain. It really doesn't matter, all the money that you save, when they're throwing flowers on your grave. All that matters is how you played the game and the lives that you touched on the way. 'Cause nothing lasts forever but your name. Don't put your trust in money. Don't base your life on fame. Your bones will turn to ashes, but your stories will remain. 'Cause nothing lasts forever but your name. Dancers and musicians, all artists of the trade, those who live on faith and try to make the grade, will hang on till their dreams, till their star begins to fade, or life goes on and turns another page. 'Cause nothing lasts forever but your name. Don't put your trust in money. Don't base your life on fame. Your bones will turn to ashes, but your stories will remain. 'Cause nothing lasts forever but your name. No, nothing lasts forever but your name. So that's it. That's the truth, folks. You know, we think that all these things last, all this money that we get, you know, and I've seen so many people that when they die, all their possessions go into the dumpster, all that money disappears, and the only thing that's really left to that person after a while is the stories. The stories remain. If you were a good person, they tell good stories. If you weren't a good person, they tell different stories. So it's important, folks, that you always try to do your best. Try to live your life the best way that you can. And create a good story for your memory. So this is Rik Palieri over here in the hills of Vermont saying good night. And I hope you enjoyed something about writing. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me, write to me, and I'll answer them the best that I can. And until next week, this is Rik Palieri saying so long.